طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. So alhamdulillah, this is going to be our last session covering a Risala Tubukiya, the Tubukian message or the message from Tubuk by Imam Ibn Al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, also known as Zad al-Muhajir ila Allah, the provisions for the traveler to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, also known as the spiritual journey to Allah and His Messenger. As a matter of fact, that was the title that the translator gave, the one that we've been reading through, Sheikh Muhammad Jibali, like the spiritual journey to Allah and His Messenger. And as we've already mentioned multiple times, the zubda and kind of like the summarization of this book, or before I even mention the summarization, the genre, right, of this book, the genre of this book is considered like tazkiyah or like spiritual development or spiritual purification, right? You cleansing yourself, which would be different from like a fiqh book where it would be talking about bodily purification, the different types of water, the different types of containers that you're allowed to use to hold that water, right? And then after the different categories of water, right, then how you make tahara in order for you to physically be prepared to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to physically meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to physically meet with him, physically in the sense that you are standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you preparing for that in your salah. Now, not that we mean physically, literally, that you're meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the fiqh book, right? And that would be, right, the bab of tahara. So you can look at tazkiyah as being like tahara for your soul, a cleansing and a purification and a washing, right, for your heart, your soul, your spiritual self. And this is an extremely important genre of reading for us, considering that all too often as Muslims, we are, just the nature of life, going to work, going to school, living life, projects, responsibilities, different things that you have to take care of, living in a secular society, right? Spirituality is not something that is talked about often enough. Everything else has some type of app. Everything else has some type of notification to reach out to remind you. There is advertisements. There's all kind of stuff to remind you about everything else that you got to do, right? But the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the remembrance of our purpose here and what we're really here for, there is not enough. There cannot be enough. If we were to be constantly remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it still wouldn't be enough, right? And so that's why it's important, and that's something I'll talk about at the end, some of like the takeaways, the importance of having personal time and personal self-study, where you are reading or listening or attending, right, some type of gathering that is in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? If you think about work, for example, and you go to work and if you want to excel and get better at your job, they'll do what for you? They'll give you extra trainings. They'll send you to another state. They might send you for a retreat, right? But you have to do more than the base level, what you're already doing for your work, in order for you to either solidify your position, to get better, and to raise higher at your job, right? The point though is that you have to do what? If you want to do that, you gotta put in more work. That's the point. Similarly at school, right? You have the schooling that you have, your regular classes, but then if you want to excel and you want to do better, there's this extra time that you have to study outside of the norm of you just studying in your class. And if you really want to excel, you might have study groups, or you might go to tutoring, or the point is again that you do what? You do extra. Same thing if you were taking sports. There's okay, you play for a team, right? Or you play for a school or whatever, and then you have the regular practice that everybody's got to attend. But then those who are the stars of the team, those who are right, the starters, the varsity, not the second string, third string, or whatever, those people do what? They get up earlier, they practice more, they practice earlier, they stay later, they put in more work, right? Is that not the case, y'all? Is that not the case? Hmm? That's okay. That's why I give multiple examples. So whether it's for your if you want to memorize Quran, can you only read when you're with the sheikh, and then outside of that you don't read? No, you have to do what? Outside of the time that you're not with the sheikh, you have to study, right? And then you could have your hifz, your memorization, or your memory, right? Where you read to the sheikh, but you make mistakes. You stop here and there. I'm not sure, right? But if you want itqan, you want to be mutqin, you have to do what? It's very simple. That's it. It's not complicated. You don't have to overthink about it. There's not no special formula. You just need what? More time. That's it. You have to put in more effort, more, and it's that straight. Especially when it comes to memorizing something, because it's just tikrar. You have to say it over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, when Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, when he was asked, how did he reach what he reached, right? In terms of his seemingly, miraculous memory, right? And hit the breadth and depth of the knowledge that he had. When he was asked, like, how did you attain that? He simply said, kathratul ittila. I had to do a lot of reading. That was it. It was that simple. Not I drink camel milk, at the after Fajr or before Fajr, after I pray Qiyam al-Layl for 2.5 hours, and then it was that simple. Just a lot of reading, putting in effort and work. So if somebody wants to get better in their spirituality and they want to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, there are different things that you can do in terms of fasting Mondays and Thursdays. You can do things like, praying the Sunan al-Rawatib, etc., right? But one thing that I want to suggest to you is that you have to put in some time when you are on your own, independently, where you are doing some, like I said, either reading or listening. And especially the reading is beneficial because then it'll be more engaged, right? If you have a book, right? Or even if it's a digital book or whatever. But if you have a book, physical or otherwise, but that you take notes, that you're thinking about, that you're reflecting, that you're going on, that you have your own ideas that you're building on, whatever it is that you're reading. And this is something that we have gotten away from. We want there to be a hack. We want there to be some easy way. We want there to be like, if you just do these 3 things and then you'll be straight. And it's not that simple, right? It's not like that. It does require your own personal initiative and effort. Anyways, so that being said, reading in this type of book is very, very important. As a matter of fact, a number of sheikhs, when I was studying in Medina, this book, Al-Risala Tabukiyya and Ad-Da' wa Dawa, they would teach that book and read it every year, like once a year, like revisit it and go back over it because of the content and because of what's being discussed and how important it is, right? And of course, again, it's the same idea that repetition is going to solidify and take hold, right, in you, right? That you're going to remember it, that these are the things that you're going to be thinking about. And even the Shaykh rahimahullah, he has a chapter when he talks about the good companionship that you have to have. And if you're not able to find good company, physical, living people around you, right, then quoting, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, right, that if you have to cling to and follow somebody's way, فَلْيَتَسَنَّ بِمَنْ قَدْ مَاتٍ, then do so with those who are dead. And how are you going to do that? By reading their biographies, and you having to go over that and remember that again to the extent or to the degree that you know them so well because you've read that so much, it's as if they're really with you because you know them, as if it was someone that you have lived with, hung out with, you stayed with them, right? And because of what you know about them, it's like they're really there with you, right? So it's the same idea. Al-Muhim, so Last couple of weeks, what we talked about, minus last week, he talked about the need for good companionship, and then breaking that into two categories of, as you're on this journey, and the companionship that you're trying to have are people who share the same values that you have, and they are trying to attain what you're trying to attain, which is what? That I'm completely turning my heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that I prioritize Him over everything else. I love Him more than anything else. I'm even afraid of Him more than anyone else. And because of that, He's at the center of my life. And that is expressed through my worship. My ibadah is exclusively and only directed to Him, right? Your ibadah being purified for Him, and it being rooted in your love of Him, and of course your fear of Him. And then he says what? When you do that, and they have those values, and the following the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and putting him in the driver's seat of your life, and if they have those same values, then alhamdulillah, that's a tremendous blessing. And they will help you, and they'll support you, right, in your journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in trying to attain that. But if you can't find those people, and he said, and it may be that may be the case, it might be that you're unfortunate, you don't have somebody who's your age, or somebody who you can hang out with, or a cohort, or a group, or friend, whatever. He said that might happen. Matter of fact, it might even be not only do you not find people, but the people that are around you, they might even be harmful to you. Why are you being so? You're doing too much. You're a try hard. You think you're so religious. You think you're better than us. And instead of them supporting and helping you, he said, yeah, late. It would be even good enough if they just left you alone. Halas. They're like neutral. He said, nah, more likely what you'll encounter is that they harm you and try to hold you back like crabs in a barrel. When you're trying to advance yourself and you're trying to be the best version of yourself as a complete Muslim, not just as a compartmentalized, I'm a good Muslim when I'm at the masjid. I'm a good Muslim in certain areas or at certain times, but every other area of my life, I live however I want to. No. You're trying to be the best Muslim that you can be at all times. He said, when you're trying to do that, sometimes other people don't like that. And there's lots of different reasons. It could make them feel their own insecurities about their own spirituality and their relationship with Allah. And you're reminding them of that. If they're drinking and smoking and you're not, and you're reminding them, they know they're doing wrong and they don't want to be reminded. And so when you're reminded, so then they try to put you down and pull you down. Oh, you think you're better than us? Oh, how come you doing right? Et cetera, et cetera. Y'all understand that? And you see a lot of people do that, where they'll pull you down because your mere presence reminds them that they're doing what they're not supposed to be doing, right? Tayyib, he said, okay, they're harming you either in that way, or they're essentially trying to get you to stoop down to their level. That's pretty much it, or worse. So he said, okay, so if you don't find somebody that has good qualities, that are good companions for the journey, he said, then looking to the past and the biographies of the righteous, starting with the prophets and messengers from the Quran, then from the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then those who followed them, right, from the tabi'een, and so on, right, and then the scholars after them. Then he says, all right, in order for you to do that, right, regardless of whether you do find actual companions like that, but just dealing with people in general, you need to have three kind of qualities. There needs to be three qualities or traits that you need to have, and the type of character that you need to have in order to be somebody who is worthy of being somebody who's supported, who's helped, who's aided, right? Who other people want to be around, and that they will benefit from your presence, and they will benefit from whatever beneficial knowledge you might have, or the values that you're trying to have, the things that you're trying to live and exemplify. Like they'll get something from it. The three qualities are forgiveness, right? That's number one, is forgiveness. Overlooking people's faults, their wrongs, and their mistakes, right? That will entail you making excuses for people. That will entail you, you know what I'm saying, being humble. That will require you to be very humble, because oftentimes people's egos, right, don't want to overlook people's, how dare you disrespect me or do something wrong to me or what have you. But if you look at it, the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, that was not the attitude that he had. That was not the approach that he had. Matter of fact, we mentioned, right, that when it came to people wronging him, he would never get vengeance or get back at somebody for himself. Like if it was a personal slight, right? So he's not going to get into a tit for tat. Somebody said something about him, he's going to say something back. Somebody did something wrong to him, the Prophet ﷺ would never do that. And that would require you to what? Like crush your ego. But you have to be willing to forgive people. Secondly is enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. Enjoining good, which would mean what? That even if somebody wrongs you and you overlook that and you accept that, and accept is not the right word. You forgive them and overlook it in hopes that, right, that they will do better. Enjoining the good, though, means that you are encouraging others to do better and to be better. And not simply saying that, oh, you got to accept us for who we are and we're just going to stay with. No, you do not do that. When it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's boundaries, you are still encouraging people. So that would mean what? Practically, that would mean you're hanging out with your friends. Y'all are playing, basketball or whatever, and it's time to pray. You're not going to sneak off, go make wudu, pray, and then come back and join the game like nothing happened. You're going to be like, hey, I'm about to go pray, right? Now, assuming that, let's say some of them or all of them are Muslim, you're going to encourage them to pray as well. Obviously, you can't force them. You can't make them, but you're not going to just leave it at that and say nothing. You're going to be like, yo, y'all should pray. You know what I'm saying? Join us or whatever. Like, time out, but you're going to say something. And this is going to require on your part and my part and anybody who is willing to do this, you're going to need some courage. You can't be afraid of people. You can't be, but what are they going to say? It's embarrassing. What if they say no? Because then that means what? You're more concerned with them than you are concerned with who? Then you're concerned about Allah. Now you're thinking about them and you're worried about what they might say as opposed to you're standing with Allah. What is Allah going to say that you are there in a situation where he should have been honored, where he should have been remembered, when he should have been glorified and praised, and you should have been reminding people about that when they forgot and you chose not to? That's your question should be, what is he going to say to me if I don't do that? As opposed to what are they going to say for me for saying something? Again, does that make sense, y'all? And it's the same thing for, every other area in your life, but enjoining the good. Now, more often than not, this part is a little bit easier, the enjoining the good, but it also requires, what's the other part to that? Enjoining the good and, again, the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that if something wrong is going down, again, saying something. Again, you can't force people. You can't make them do anything, right? But if you're going to be there, if you're going to be present, then you have to let people know what you're about. If you're silent, if you don't say anything, no matter what you say at that point after that, you are with them. Even if you don't participate, even if you don't, but you're there and you don't say anything and you don't do anything, you're the same as them, right? Spiritually and even legally. If you're driving a car, if your friend is driving a car, picks you up, you get pulled over by the police, and we say, they say, let me see your license and registration. And the car is stolen. Your friend stole the car. You are what? Do you know what that word is? No, there's a word for it. Yeah, it's guilty. Yeah, they're guilty. You're an accessory. You are a part of it. And no police officer is going to believe you. I didn't know. And it could be true. It could be that, you know what I'm saying, they picked you up and you know they don't have that much money for that kind of car. You 17, 19, 18 years old, and he pulls up with a car, and you know it's not his car, but you don't ask. You don't say nothing. Police officer ain't going to believe you. Be like, hey, I didn't know it was stolen. They're going to be like, no. They're not going to believe you hanging out with your friend, driving around, and you didn't know that he didn't steal that car. Huh? And if you know that, even if it was something in the back of your mind, you should what? You should say something. No. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ teaches us anyways. من رأى منكم منكرا فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه فإن لم يستطع فبقلبه وذلك أضعف الإيمان. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever from amongst you see something wrong, change it with your hand. And of course, that means what? That I have the authority and the ability to do so. Between you and a friend, you could stop your friend. Huh? If you're a parent, you can stop your kids. If you're a police officer, you have even more authority. If you're right, if the higher your position, the more authority you have. The lesser position you have, right? I'm just a kid. I can't stop my dad from doing something. I'm 12 years old. I'm 15. I can't make him do something. Okay. Then it goes down to the second thing. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَبِلِسَانِهِ. You can say something though. The point here is that what? If you're going to deal with people, you have to have these qualities. And if you look at it, couple those together. You enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. But what did he say first? You got to have forgiveness, right? Which means you have to be forbearing, right? Bearing people's mistakes, right? And then coupling that with enjoining the good and forbidding the evil and forgiveness, those together, right, are what's going to make it people are able to like tolerate that. If you're unforgiving and you're trying to enjoin the good and forbidding the evil, that's like, then you're not really helping people. You're condemning people. You're judging people. You're, you know what I'm saying? That's driving people away. That's the finger wagging, astaghfirullah, how dare you? And that's not right. But being empathetic, being understanding, being caring, right? That's why that forgiveness part, along with enjoining the good and forbidden, and I'm sure every one of us have encountered people who were missing one or the other. You have people who are very gentle and kind and easy, but they'll never correct you or say you did anything wrong or whatever. They got that forgiveness part down, that nice part down. Or you have sometimes people who have that other part, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, and they have no chill. There's nothing that they'll accept from you or be understanding or understanding of your situation or whatever. And then anyways, he says avoiding harm. And those were all things that were talked about last week. And then he gave examples from the Prophet ﷺ, how he used to pardon people who personally harmed him, that he used to pray for their forgiveness, like the people of Ta'if, when he tried to make da'wah to them and they stoned, or they had the children stone him and throw rocks at him and so on. And he had to run for miles, almost like 3 miles outside of Ta'if, until he was finally able to take refuge under a tree. And then he made dua for them. He made dua for them and prayed for them. And look when he made dua for them, he didn't even say so that they will be forgiven. He said, because perhaps, maybe from their children, maybe from their kids will be people who say, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Right? That's how compassionate the Prophet ﷺ was. Again, because his care and concern was the message and not them personally attacking him. Even though they physically hurt him, that wasn't his care and concern. Because he had the opportunity to get back at them and get revenge at them. Because within that story of him going to Ta'if, it's mentioned that after that happened, right, the angel Jibril alayhi salam came to him along with the angel of the mountains, and he said, I'm the angel of the mountains, and if you want, Ta'if is nestled between a mountainous region. He said, I can make these two mountains crush those people who did what they did to you. And the thing here is that would he be wrong if he got revenge on them? It's within his right. It's within his right. They attacked him. They harmed him. They humiliated him. They, almost killed him. For him to get back at them, but he didn't though, right? And again, that's to give a practical example of what the Shaykh was saying about forgiveness, enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. And then he quotes the ayah, fa'fu anhum, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, excuse me, fa'fu anhum wastaghfir lahum wa shawirhum fil amr, fa idha azamta fatawakkal ala Allah. And then he mentions that ayah, and that exemplified the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to deal with people and how he actually went about dealing with them. Fa'fu anhum, pardon them, forgive them, right? Wastaghfir lahum, and not only that, pray for their forgiveness. Washawirhum fil amr, and then on top of that, right, consult them in the affairs. So again, this is talking about people who are actually with you, right? Who that you have those shared values. So then, not only are you pardoning them whenever they make mistakes, or there's like something between you and those who are trying to uphold these values, but then also that you pray for them, right, behind their back, of course, but then also that you make consultation with them. That you, when you're trying to make decisions, when you're trying to do things, that you seek out their counsel. And a part of the reason for that, right, especially if you're in a leadership position, is because it makes the people who are with you and those people who are supporting you and following you, they have a vested interest. It's not just them simply obeying and doing whatever they're being told to do, but they have some input to give, which means they're more likely to follow, they're more likely to be loyal and to support. You do that, right? So now, though, in order for you to try to attain those qualities and those manners, there's 3 conditions that you have to have, and that's where we pick up today, and then we'll finish, inshallah, the rest. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قال المصنف رحمه الله نفعنا وإياه بعلمه في الدارين اللهم آمين. He says 3 conditions for acquiring excellent manners. So those manners that he talked about, that the Prophet ﷺ had, that we talked about in the last class, how are you going to attain them? He said a person cannot attain excellent character without 3 conditions. Number 1, he must possess good ground or knowledge that can help him pursue this excellence through knowledge, determination, and action. A rough and dry nature makes it hard to submit to this, whereas a mild and smooth nature makes it possible to receive the plowing, right? And so I would call this 2 things: being humble and open-minded. Being humble and open-minded. And by this, I mean, when we are being told, somebody comes and tells you, this is halal, this is haram, or I'm simply advising you, brother, or I'm giving you advice, sister, that you have an open mind, that you're not argumentative, that you're not defensive, that you're not, why? Is it wajib? Do I have to? How come? Why not this? But we're in America. But it's 2024. Why do I got to do it? They don't have to do it. That kind of like pushing back and that kind of, right? That's the opposite of being humble. And then being open-minded is sometimes people are like, that's your interpretation. Or I don't have to do that. That's good for you, but that's not for me. I already know. That attitude of like, I already know. I was born Muslim. And this reminds me, I remember one time there was a brother, a revert brother, who was Hmong, no less, mashallah. But he was very serious about learning and studying. And the brother used to read a lot. And he was coming from Wisconsin. And so this was when I was like in my 4th year studying in Medina. And when I came in the summer, when I came to the masjid, pray salat, and I used to just pray there and then just leave. So, but he knew I was studying, and he stopped and he asked me a question. And then, and he said, ask me this question. And then I told him, right, to encourage him to, because he liked to study, he liked to read, and he liked to learn. I said, why don't we go read this book, right, that has the answer? Why don't we go look at this book together, right? He said, okay, but I need an answer first. There's someone I was talking to, right? And they won't listen to me. He was like, even though I know this is in a hadith or whatever. I said, okay, we'll talk to him. So he brings the brother. Now this brother was born Muslim. His brother was born Muslim, but he was not a student. He was not somebody who was studying. I mean, as far as I know, right? He was just, lay Muslim, 9 to 5, Jazakallah khair brother. Okay. And then Said, Assalamu alaikum. Hey, wanted to let you know about this little issue or whatever. And as soon as I said, just want to talk to you about this issue, he said, brother, Jazakallah khair. I already know. I've talked to that brother. I don't want to hear it. I said, oh, okay. No problem. I can't force nothing on him, right? I said, okay. But if you want to do like that, then just know, brother, also you cannot make him do something that you think is right. I said, and at the very least, I said, actually, we're in America. Like, you can't make somebody do anything. He's like, oh, we're in America. So America's the most important thing. It's like, no, brother, I'm not saying that. I'm simply telling you, I'm just trying to reinforce the idea you can't force somebody to do something, whether on a regular basis or a religious basis. That's not fitting. But I said, why don't we at least go read this book? And why don't we go see, right? You said you're saying one thing, he's saying something else. I knew the answer, but I didn't want to get, because then he's going to be like, what? That's you. That's your, right? That's you telling me, right? That's what your sheikh said. I said, why don't we go read this book? And it was a book by Sheikh Al-Bani, rahimahullah. And it was about salat. It was called Sifatul Salat al-Nabi, right? So we go get the brother says, all right, fine. So we go to the book and we open the book, right? Now, if any of you have ever read this book, you will know Sheikh Al-Bani, rahimahullah, is a very notable scholar who he passed away some years ago. But his specialty was in hadith. His specialty, he's known as a scholar of hadith. Anyways, so when you're reading the book, he namely just presents the mas'ala, the issue, and then just the hadith, because the Prophet ﷺ said, because the Prophet ﷺ said, because the Prophet ﷺ said. So we share with the brother. And he said, brother, could you just read this here? And then he reads it. And it's hadith. And then it was against what his opinion. And he was like, that's your sheikh's interpretation. That's, that sheikh, that's what he's saying. I said, brother, we look at the quote. Who's that from? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And which book? Sahih Bukhari. Oh, okay. So I'm not, if you look at it, it's not what the sheikh is saying. He wrote the book, yes, he compiled it, but he's just quoting who? Who's he quoting, y'all? But that brother was so close-minded about that. Like, he did not want to hear anything. He did not want to discuss. He did not want to, nothing. And look at the main reason why he thought that and this is my humble estimation, Allahu A'lam, but because he was born Muslim and because this brother was a revert and he was Asian at that, from like Hmong, which is like, that's not typically Muslims that you see, right? So he's like, I know better. This is not being open-minded. As a matter of fact, a lot of issues that we have in our community are because a lot of people are closed-minded. And they're closed-minded how? When it comes to the deen, because we were born somewhere, because we went to madrasa when we were little, and that's enough. I already know what I need to know. As if learning the deen stops after you finish madrasa. But most people stop going to madrasa when they're how old? 15, 16 years old? Khalas. Does a 15, 16-year-old study about riba? Do they study about the ahkam of janazah? Do they study the ahkam of zawaj? Bay' wa shira? They don't. They don't study none of that stuff. But all of those things, the older you get, there are always going to be things that you need to be studying and learning in the deen. Always. I want to get married. Okay, there's ahkam of zawaj. We're about to have children. There's rulings about having children, the huquq, al-awlad, the rights that they have. I'm going to college. Can I take out a loan? Am I allowed to take these classes? Am I allowed to take a philosophy class? Is that your Jews? People don't know. They're faced with those issues, right? And the older you get, the more you go up, the more you're facing different issues as you get older. I'm older now. What about, do I have a will? What about my wealth? Who am I going to give it to? Tayyib? Do I know? Is that stuff prepared? No matter which phase in life, there's things that Islam has something to say about it. But most people, they stop once they stop going to madrasa. They say, that's it. I don't need to know nothing else. Naam. They're not open-minded. Tayyib. Secondly, so being open-minded and humble. Secondly, He must possess a strong soul, capable of conquering cause of laziness, transgression, and desire, all of which contradict excellence. The souls that cannot defeat this will always be defeated and conquered. So this, you can say, is simply self-discipline, right? As Muslims, right, we should have a degree of self-discipline, right? Somebody who is sleeping all day, this is unbefitting of a Muslim. Somebody who is playing all day, this is unbefitting of a Muslim. Somebody who's watching all day, right? Whatever, that's unbefitting for a Muslim. That's not something that is appropriate. Now, unless if you're watching something that's beneficial, you're learning, okay, that's something different. We're not talking about that. But we're talking about you just sitting watching movies, entertainment, sports, whatever, and it's hours and hours on end. Or you're playing video games, play it. You play video games, relax, okay, no problem. But you're doing for hours and hours and hours on end. They even made a term, right, for watching, that you're binging. You watching 2, 3, 5 seasons in 2 days, 3 days. Do you know how long that is? A show could be an hour long. If you watch a season and there's 10 episodes, how many hours is that? That's 10 hours. If you watch 2 seasons within a day, how many hours did you just spend? 20 hours. That's almost a whole day. That's almost a whole, you don't even sleep that long. And there's nothing else you do, but you'll find people have no problem with that, let alone you'll have Muslims who also, they got no problem with that. And they'll think that that's like normal, casual. And the irony is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says that the feet of the son of Adam will not move from in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless they are asked about. In some narrations it says 4, in others it says 5 things. And one of them is your time. Your time, and what did you do with your time? Your life, and what did you consume your life in? The Prophet ﷺ, he also mentioned, right? Ni'matani maghburun fihima kathirun minan nas. Ni'matani, 2 blessings that a lot of people take for granted. As-sihha wal faragh. Their good health, they take it for granted, and you don't really see the value of it, right, like that until you get sick. Then you're like, man, I wish I got better now. And then the second one is your free time. Your free time. We do not value that the way that it should be. And it is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us about. That does not mean you don't have free time. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy yourself, relax, kick it, etc. But like anything else, in moderation. In moderation. Play it. But self-discipline, though, is extremely important, right? Because obviously, because sometimes you're not going to feel like doing something. Sometimes it's not going to be, right? Waking up at 3:45, 4 o'clock, like in the summer, Fajr is like 3 something in the morning. But Isha is at like 11. So sometimes you don't feel like waking up. Sometimes it's easy for you. You pop up, Allahu Akbar, mashallah, making wudu, everything, maybe even get up a little bit early. Sometimes it's easy. Other times you don't feel like it. But if you have discipline, you're going to do what? You're going to get up and do it, whether you feel like it or whether you do or not. This element right here, this is something that is and this is just my own personal take, like the culture of today very much pushes the idea, if you're not feeling something, then you shouldn't do it or you don't have to do it. And that is not something that will get you very far. There are all kinds of things in life, in virtually every area of your life, where you might not want to do something, but tough, you got to do it anyways. Sometimes you don't like your work. You don't like your boss, but you got to pay your bills. So even though you don't like your work, you still got to what? You still got to do it. Yeah, and you got, right? At the very least, you got to meet their requirements at the least, right? In marriage. Sometimes you may not be feeling it. You might be upset with your wife. But if you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll have to do what? I still have to give her her rights. Your children, if they disobey you and you're upset with them, you still have to, I still got to feed them. I still got to feed those jokers. Still got to pay the bills. You still got to put a roof over their head. Whether I feel like it or I don't feel like it, I still got to, because if I'm the father, that's my responsibility. I still got to do that. My point though is that what? Sometimes you don't want to do your homework. It doesn't make sense to me. What's the benefit of this? I don't understand it. Why I got to take this course? It has nothing to do with my major. It has nothing to do with my major. But in order for me to graduate, I got to do what? You got to take the course. You're not the one who created it. And if you want to finish, then you got to suck it up. So there is an element and an aspect of that in Islam. Matter of fact, if you look at it, this is something that if you recognize and reckon with this, a lot of things will be easier for you. Just starting from the beginning, the word Islam means what? Submission and surrender, to give up. That's what it means. And then a Muslim is someone who what? Somebody who submits and surrenders. So now, if Islam is submission and surrender, that means what? I give in to Allah. I feel like it. I don't. Matter of fact, it's not even enough to just, I don't feel like it, right? But it is me constantly working on myself to submit and surrender to Him. And not only that, but that I'm working on myself to do so happily. I surrender and I submit to Allah. I don't understand. How come I can't get a conventional mortgage? I don't understand. It seems like I'm paying more with the Islamic company than I am with the regular bank. Why do I? Listen, it might seem that way, but the issue is not about money. It's about that this one is haram and Allah made this one halal, right? Otherwise, right? It might not make sense to you. It might not seem right, but this is what I believe, that Allah is Al-Hakim, that He is all wise, that He is Al-Alim, that He is all knowing, that He knows best. So I'm doing what He's telling me to do. I'm surrendering. I submit. Does that make sense, Shay? I'll tell you. That self-discipline is extremely, extremely important. And that's for everything. That's for every area of your life. Thirdly, he says he must possess a discerning knowledge of the truth of matters, which would enable him to put things in their rightful position and to distinguish between flesh and cancer, beads and gems, right? So this, we'll say, is sacred knowledge. You cannot be able to have distinguish between what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, what's light and what's dark. You can't do that without sacred knowledge. You can't do that. There are some things, yes, that are innate, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made in our fitrah, right? There are things that are vile, disgusting, bad, wrong, stealing, you know that, right? Killing, you know that's wrong. Your natural, right, instinct, tayyib. But there's going to be things that you don't know, that you can't distinguish. And the only way you'll be able to do that is you need to have sacred knowledge. Which means what? If you don't already have it, that means you got to what? You got to learn. You got to learn. And that means, right, that you need to have somewhere built in your life that you are learning Islam. So it can't be sporadic. It can't be once in a while, right? And Jumu'ah is not enough. Jumu'ah is not enough. I repeat, Jumu'ah is not enough. Jumu'ah is 30 minutes. Let's not even say 30 minutes. Let us say from 1 to 1:30. They want you to finish the khutbah and they want you to be done with the salah. So let us say the imam arrives and ascends the minbar at 1 o'clock. The mu'adhin, he has to make the adhan. And he has a beautiful rendition of the adhan. So he takes 4 minutes. How much time I got left? 26 minutes, right? Then you got khutbatul hajah. If you translate it, that's about 3 minutes. How much time we got left? You got 23 minutes, huh? And you got to fit in, a succinct, good message. That's going to be a reminder. That's going to be motivating. That's going to be inspirational. That's going to be a warning. Targhib, tarheeb. You got to fit all of that, right, into there. And salat's going to take about 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, right? So 23 minus 7, just to give it a nice good time for the salah. How much? 16 minutes. 16 minutes. If you tell me 16 minutes once a week is enough for your learning of Islam, la, mafi. That's ma yumkin. That's mustahil. That's supposed to be like a quick charge for your battery. That's the Jumu'ah is a quick charge for your battery, so you can go back for the rest of the week, right? That you got something for your iman. And then as you live life and you go through your day-to-day for the rest of the week, your iman is going to go down. That boost, that charge that you had is going to go down, and you're going to come back another Friday to get it back up. That is not where learning is going to take place. You got to have some. Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. It's very, very important. So now the Shaykh, he says, if these three qualities are present in a person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants him facilitation, he will be among those to whom the best achievement has been decreed and for whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's care has been secured. So to summarize, three qualities that you need to have in order to attain other etiquettes and manners to be someone who is continually going on that journey. And not only that, but is someone who is good company to be around, that is going to be beneficial for yourself and those who are around you. And number one is being, we said, open-minded and humble, right? That means being open-minded to constructive criticism, advice, people telling you something, right? And you, even if you already know, sometimes somebody will tell you something you already know. You knew that hadith before that person was even born. You already memorized those ayat when they were younger or whatever. You're an expert in it. It doesn't matter. Be open-minded, be humble. And if you look at it, that's contrary to the shaitan. If you look at shaitan, he responded back and he thought he knew better than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he was told to bow down to Adam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him and the angels to bow down to Adam, what did he say? He didn't have an open mind. He didn't trust in the wisdom and the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Ana khayrun minhu. Khalaqtani min narin wa khalaqtahu min teen. He tried to rationalize and argue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I know better. No, that doesn't make no sense. I'm better than him. You made me from fire. Fire is all consuming. It's powerful. It raises, it goes up, it consumes. What is turab, this dust and clay? It's lowly, it's dirty, right? It descends, it goes down. Fire is better than clay. Look at that. He had a closed mind. And instead of being open-minded with the one who is all-knowing, the one who has all knowledge, look at what it prevented him from. And look at what it caused him. Right? And his rationale, of course, was racism, taban, that he's better than him, right? Because of his nature. All of that is your ego. Tayyib. So we said that's the first thing. The second thing is self-discipline, and that is that is absolutely essential and necessary. And essentially that deals with things like delayed gratification and you being able to keep your eyes on the prize, right? Like why are you getting up for Fajr? Is in the example that I gave, even though it's 3:30 in the morning and you've only been asleep for like 3-4 hours. Because what? Because there's a greater goal that I have in mind. I'm tired. I'm sleepy right now, whatever, but I get up and do it. I'm fasting in Ramadan. It's a long winter, it's long summer hours, but I'm doing it. Why? Because I'm keeping my eyes on the prize, the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. So I have that self-discipline and self-restraint. Tayyib. And then, of course, sacred knowledge. This is important. You're not going to be able to attain anything worthwhile, be able to discern between what is haqq and batil, what is truth and falsehood, unless you have sacred knowledge. Tayyib. And then the last part, the Shaykh, he goes on to say, is a gift for the lovers of Allah and His Messenger. If you peer into words contained in these pages, you will perceive that they describe what is most required for mutual help, yani al-birr wa taqwa, and in migrating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, which was the zubda of the entire book. This is what the author intended when he wrote this treatise, making it an early and expedited gift to his friends and companions in seeking the knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the witness, and sufficient is he as a witness, that if this treatise reaches any such friends, he will receive it with pleasure, hasten to understand it, and will consider it as one of the best possible gifts among friends. Simply put, beneficial knowledge is the best possible gift that you can give someone. It's better than you buying them a new jacket or some shoes or a video game or something like that. The best thing that you can give to somebody is knowledge that they will benefit both in this life and the hereafter. Right? That's what the Shaykh is saying. That's the best possible gift you can give. If you taught somebody Surah Al-Fatiha, that's the best gift you could give them. If you taught somebody how to make wudu, that's the best gift you can give them. If you taught them some wisdom, whether from the Quran or from the Sunnah, of the statements of the Salaf, but something that would benefit them in this life and in the hereafter is far better than material things. And you should consider that the next time, for example, when Eid comes up and you want to buy a gift, consider that, what you might buy somebody. Because anything else you buy them, a trinket, a bauble, something that is going to be out of fashion, your child is not even going to like it later on anyways. After a few days, they play with it, then they throw it in the garbage. Or you bought something for your wife or your friend or whatever. Consider that if you can get them something, whether it's something that you teach them, whether it's a book, whether it's a course that you pay for it, that they can attend on their own time, but consider giving the gift of beneficial knowledge, the best thing you could possibly give them. And this is what the Shaykh, this is what he considered this book. He considered it a gift to his friends and the people who were studying, who were students of knowledge. This was a gift to them when he wrote this book. Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Other types of material bounties and gifts, even if people look forward to them, have little benefit and are extremely trivial because anyone can give them. Indeed, a useful gift is a good word that a person presents to his Muslim brother. This is what the Shaykh says. So, in conclusion, the summary of the above from beginning to end is that one should have regard. So pay attention now. This is the summarization of the entire book, he says. So pay attention. He says it's a summary of the entire book. In the end is that one should have regard for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, turning their heart fully to him and offering him continued submission and absolute reliance. Yani tawakkul. If an abd rightly fulfills this status, he will see amazing outcomes reflecting his Lord's bounties, benevolence, kindness, and protection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn people's hearts to him with mercy, love, and respect. But we only say, our Lord, we have been overcome by sin, ignorance, transgression, and wrong, right? Reminiscent of the ayah, رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا, right? رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He says, we hereby admit our lack and shortcomings. Anyone among us who claims a position of honor before you is but a despicable and disgraceful person. Again, tawadu, humility, not thinking so much of yourself that I've done so much ibadah, I've done so much talab al-ilm, I've given so much charity, I'm so righteous, I'm so good. He says anybody who claims like this, they're the most despicable of people because they're thinking too much of themselves. He says, so anyone amongst you who claims a position of honor before you is but a despicable and disgraceful person. If you relinquish our affairs to ourselves, we would surely be in loss, helplessness, sin, and vice. Which is, there's a dua that we're supposed to make every day, especially in the morning. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum birahmatika astaghith aslih li sha'ni kulli wa la takilni ila nafsi tarfata ayn. Which means what? Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. Oh, the one who is self-sufficient and ever living and self-sufficient. Hayyu Qayyum. Birahmatika astaghith. We seek salvation through your mercy. Rectify all of my affairs and do not leave me to my own devices or my own self. Tarfata ayn, not even the blinking of an eye. Yani not for the slightest moment. I want you to take care of my affairs, all of them, oh Allah. All right. طيب. And he said, now, woe be to us, how regretful, we are for not pleasing you, even if this would be at the cost of displeasing everyone else. How lacking are we in giving preference to you, your obedience, and love over obeying and loving everyone else. How lacking are we in behaving truthfully with you. This is similar, and loving everyone else. How lacking are we in behaving truthfully with you. This is similar to what a poet once said. فليتك تحلو والحياة مريرة وليتك ترضى والأنام غضاب وليت الذي بيني وبينك عامر وبيني وبين العالمين خراب إذا صح منك الود فكل هين وكل الذي فوق ترابي تراب. Said, I wish you were sweet to me, even if the rest of my life is bitter. I wish that you are pleased with me, even if all of the people are angry with me. I wish the relationship between me and you is sound, yani that we have a good relationship. And of course, he's talking about Allah, right? Even if that is between me and the people is ruined. If I receive true love from you, if I receive true love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all else is trivial. And to me, all that is above the earth is worthless and nothing but dust. Again, this is simply an eloquent way that he's saying what? The only thing that genuinely, truly matters to me at the end of the day is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that is good and Allah is pleased with me and he's happy with me, then nothing else matters. I could die, they could kill me, my stuff is taken, I lose my wealth, everything, it does not matter. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happy with me, that is the ultimate goal. Allah's pleasure translates to what? On the day of judgment. That translates to what? Where is that person going Yawm al-Qiyamah? Jannah. That's the ultimate goal. So if Allah is pleased with you, that means what? Then I've won. Faqad faz. Right? The person whose feet have been saved from the hell. Zuhziha anin nar. Faqad faz. That person, they're successful. I might look like I'm successful. I might look like a failure in this life, but Allah is happy with me. I'm saved from the hellfire because I prioritize Him over everything else. Then Jannah. And that's all that matters. Right? And he said what? This is the summarization of this book. Oh Allah, I can never do enough. I can never pray enough. I can never fast enough. We can never fight enough jihad. Can never give enough charity. But in spite of that, I try my best. Oh Allah, please accept from me. Oh Allah, please do not leave me to my own devices. I need you more than I need anything else. That's the summary of the book. And then the way to do that, the proper way, is by following the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow this for all of us. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Innahu waliyyu dhalik wa qadirun alayh. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And then the rest of the book, there's only 2 pages left. And I forewent going through those portions of the book because it's a lot of poetry that I would encourage you to read on your own. Right? It's a part that you can read on your own, and it's essentially 2 pages. And he doesn't elaborate or explain much of it, but it is a very, again, eloquent and beautiful way that the Shaykh explains, right? That he is, without any negative connotations, infatuated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I only care about him, and that's the ultimate thing that matters to me. So, Jazakumullah khair. With that, we will finish. If you want to stop that. And then if you, brothers who came to pray, if you would